Hey there, everybody. Cameron coming to you again live for another one of these management and leadership Q&A sessions. These are really just the favorite part of my week as I get to engage with you and help you out in kind of a real-time situation on things that you might be dealing with right now in the workplace this morning, this afternoon, wherever it happens to be that you're tuning in from. One thing I did want to mention right away is that I love for these sessions to be interactive between you and me and the question that we're dealing with. I love to get your advice and your thoughts on the question at hand. I don't pretend to have all of the answers, but I know that between all of us, we do have the answers. So don't be shy about asking a question, and don't be shy about giving your thoughts on how somebody can deal with a particular question that we're talking about in this instance. So I definitely encourage that sort of involvement from everybody out there. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Kim, good to see you this morning, or good afternoon, where you're at. But what I also wanted to mention is the events page on my Facebook. So I let everybody know, all of the subscribers to my event page know about these Q&A sessions ahead of time. And it's not something that's obtrusive. It just drops into your Facebook feed so that you're aware of them. But go to my Facebook page, go to the events section, and just subscribe there, and you'll get a couple of notifications before these sessions go live that I'm having them. You can tune in. Jason, good to see you here again as well, so that you can be ready for these and set aside some time. It's not just the question hey, Neoma, good to see you there from Nairobi, great. It's not just the questions that you have, it's also some of the questions that you have but don't know that you have. So these sessions are great to listen through from start to finish, because you'll get a great background on a bunch of things that other leaders are struggling with, and that you may really have actually been struggling with and not known it at the time because you had other things on your radar. Hazem, Dina, Tarek, Thelma, great to see you again. One of the questions that I got in the meantime from the last session that I had that I wanted to tackle right away was, how do you turn your managers into managers that develop their own people? So great, you're developing your team, but if you have an extra layer of supervisors, that's fantastic. But how do you teach them? How do you get them to be developing their team? And what I really recommend in regards to creating a culture of personal development is that you systematize it and you call it out. You know what you're looking for when you're developing your team members. So you put it together a step-by-step for your supervisors to follow when they're developing their team. And it may be as simple as calling them into a one-on-one to set, quarterly and yearly goals, and to nail down where it is that they want to progress in the company, what skills they want to acquire, that sort of thing. So that may be a first step. The next step is coming up with some sort of value added to them. What skill are they learning? What are they working on? That sort of thing. So you put together kind of a project plan, but you can share that with your supervisors. I'm sorry to hear that, Kim. Rowan, good to see you again. So you can systematize that for your supervisors. You can lay it out. It can be a checklist, but you also, I think you're doing the most important part right now, and that is showing them how to do that. By working with them and developing them, they're able to pass that along. Just like you learn from your boss, they're learning from you in that. But to drive it forward, you systematize it, but then you also talk about it in your development session. There's an old saying that great leaders don't create more followers. Great leaders create more leaders. And what you want to do is demonstrate that to them so that they know that that's part of what it is that they do. That's part of what you expect from them on a regular basis. The other question that I got is in regards to delegation, and I hadn't actually touched on delegation in one of these live Q&As in quite a while, which is great. I think hopefully some of my messages have gotten through, and some of the people that are struggling with that. But what I also encourage is, I haven't gotten those, but that doesn't mean we're not struggling with it. Delegation is something that almost all leaders are going to constantly struggle with throughout the course of their careers. So if you aren't touching on delegation and how you can be better at it on a regular basis as a leader, you're probably slipping in your abilities on that. So I encourage you to look at that on a weekly, monthly basis, not even a quarterly basis, but on a regular basis, and look at how you're delegating. And What the simple way to delegate and the simple way that I talk about it is I do, we do, and then you do. And that's the simple 3-step process, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that the person is clear on what it is that you're delegating. What task is it, and what result do you want from it? So to do that effectively, you need to understand how to do that task first. You need to know what you're looking for. And so you master what it is, the I do part. So you master what it is, so you're clear on what it is, what the duties are, how to effectively get through to what you want from a result standpoint. Then the we do, you bring that person in and the two of you work on that task together. This is part of their learning it, and you're being able to convey to them what it is exactly that you want. And then it's the you do part, and that's where you pass the task off. And so, hey Walter, Kim, good to see you. And so I do, we do, and you do. That makes sure that they understand. Give them the instruction on it. We don't give them all the details they need to be successful at it, and that'll cripple your delegation abilities, is when you don't give that sort of detail, and then you end up taking it back, and then you end up reinforcing that they can't delegate, or that you can't trust them to do something where it was really your fault all along. I do, we do, you do. That'll help you through that process. One of the things that comes in from Kim is, what are some great tips on getting your managers to concentrate less on being right and more on creating leaders? That's an absolutely great point, Kim, and I think that's something that I'll go ahead and extend out a little bit. How do you set up a culture where not just your managers and your supervisors, but your employees are more interested in developing and learning than they are on being right in a particular instance, because that can be a huge roadblock to development. Excuse me, a plane's flying overhead here. That can be a huge roadblock to development. What you want to do is you want to be rewarding them, and you want to be focusing on creating more leaders. You want to focus on the learning. You don't want to focus on what's being right. People have a natural tendency to do that, and what happens is a lot of times as leaders, we subconsciously reward that sort of behavior. Okay, you were right, and that becomes the free pass on it. Don't focus on that. As a leader, you set the tone for things. So you want to set the tone that what you're interested in a particular case is what was learned. What you're interested in is not who's right or wrong, but who's developing leaders. If you focus more on that, if you start bringing that into your conversations when you're having your supervisor discussions, when you're talking about things with supervisors, the more you talk about it and the more you focus on it, the more they will as well. People are very good at mirroring what other people are saying and thinking about. And so that's my big thing is start talking about it, start focusing on it, and focus less on who's right and who's wrong. So that would be my big key on that. I would love to get your thoughts on these questions too. I love these sessions to be interactive, so please go ahead, throw in the comment section what you're thinking on a particular question, and go to that events page so you're not late into one of these. Again, if you go to my events page on Facebook, you can just hit subscribe there and it'll drop into your newsfeed real simple. Next question is from Win, is how do you balance empathy and discipline? And when I think that the real key on that is to really set expectations for the team and be crystal clear on that. A lot of us, most of the people tuning into this session are great at empathy. They want to be better leaders. They want the best for their team. The leaders that aren't tuned into these sessions, that aren't trying to develop themselves, that aren't trying to learn, are the ones that don't care, because they think they've got it all figured out. So I think most of the people on here are in a similar boat where we believe the best in our people. All right, and that's a great trait. But where it stops being great is when you're not doing that other part of accountability. You're using the carrot, but you're not using the stick. You're not having those uncomfortable conversations. And so the real important part when you're balancing empathy and discipline is to get clear on those expectations, because it makes it easier for you to hold somebody else accountable. You can still believe the best in them, but you know that they've clearly crossed this particular line or fell short of this particular goal. And when you've conveyed that to everybody on the team, when you've had that conversation ahead of time, when everybody is clear on those expectations, then it becomes easy. It's like, I draw the example of putting your kid to bed at night. If you have a teenager and the bedtime is 9:30 p.m. and it's 9:45 and they're still up, well, then there's clearly a problem. If you set those clear expectations, then there's no room for discussion between the two of you. And I think that's really one of the things that makes it easy to do that. It's not a balancing act. The balance comes in with what the results are. And so keep caring. I think you already have enough empathy for the team. I think you already care enough about them. Set those expectations, and then the discipline part just comes easy. And that's my advice on that. Janet asked the question, how do you relight the spark in a long-term manager? And Janet, there's two things that I look at. I look at what is going on personally with them. A lot of times it's a personal issue. So you want to have that discussion and say, hey, I just noticed you're not necessarily bringing as much passion and energy. Your performance is fine, but I'm just wondering if anything's going on, anything I can help with. A lot of times it's not the work issue, it's a personal issue. And a lot of leaders are wary of stepping into those personal issues, but it has an effect, and it's important that you at least know that it's work-related or personal-related. If they're going through a tough time in their personal life, then it's going to reflect on their work life. But at least if you know about that, you can make any sort of reasonable accommodations that need to be made. And, if you feel the need to or feel appropriate, then you can go ahead and offer some advice. Mohammed, Ahmed, Win, good to see you again. Win, thank you. You're welcome. So, have that personal discussion with them. But a lot of times, people get stuck in a rut. We will get stuck in a rut in our own careers. So, you need a new challenge. You need something new to learn. You need some new development. And so, if you want to relight the fire, you need to bring some extra wood to that fire to get it to light up again. You need to bring a new match. You need to bring something. So find out a challenge. Find out what they want to work on, where they're feeling stagnant in things. But you need to break them out of that rut. And so find out what interests them. Find out what they like. Give them some new empowerment. Give them a new project. Give them a new challenge. People like to rise to challenges. They don't like to stagnate. And so I think that's really what you want to look at in a long-term manager. And it's something that happens with teams as well. Whole teams will go stagnant and will have some problems lighting that fire in themselves. And so I think that's something that you can look at as well. Hey, Bala, good to see you again. Diane, Ahmed again. Muhammad asked the question, what's most important in business culture? The most important thing in business culture, in establishing a good culture, and what I say, when you know you're successful as a leader, is when your team is engaging with you on a constant basis. Engagement is really the currency for how good your leadership is. I say that communication is the most important aspect of leadership, and how you know you're doing it right is when you're getting communicated back. And so what you want is a business culture where people are free to bring ideas, where people are valued in what they do, and they feel that sense of ownership. So really look to establish that engagement. And how you do that is you first make yourself available to communicate more. I like to say that there's no such thing as over-communication in leadership. And what I mean by that is, if you don't think you're over-communicating, you're not communicating enough. We're very bad gauges of our own communication abilities. You want to communicate more, but what you also want to do is you also want to start asking questions. So take your team, and when they bring something to you, don't just give them an answer. Ask them a question about it. Ask them what they think you should do. But open up that dialogue. You need that two-way communication. And as you give them more practice with them giving you their thoughts, the more they will volunteer those thoughts later on. And that's where you see really great cultures. That's where you see really great leaders thrive, is when their team brings them things. What you get is you get more ideas, and you also hear about problems before they become emergencies. And those are a couple of things that every great leader wants more of. So, Saeed asked the question, how to guide a team member who is spreading negative energy within the team. And so when you have a specific team member and you have specific instances where they're building up negativity within the team, what I do is I actually handle that directly. I'm a big fan of having those I won't say confronting, but very transparent conversations with people. Everybody knows what's going on, but a lot of times we beat around the bush. And a lot of my advice is to actually beat around the bush to make it more comfortable, make people more open. But when you're facing a problem where somebody's bringing in negative energy or negative gossip, and you have specific instances, bring them in. What you want to do is you want to talk about the specific instances where they were spreading negative energy. You want to highlight to them the effect that has on other people, and then you want to give them another option, which is bringing those questions to you. A lot of times, Saeed, I would make this educated guess that the negative energy and the negative things that they are spreading aren't true. They're rumors, they're gossip, what have you. And so what you want to do is bring them in, tell them, hey, I heard you talking about this. That's not the case, but I want you to bring that to me, because if you don't bring that to me, then all of the people are concerned about something that isn't actually taking place. So the next time you have a question about that, bring it to me. You and I can discuss it. I don't mind you talking to your coworkers, but I want it to be a productive conversation. I want it to be, truth-filled. If you've got questions, then bring them to me. And so what that does is, that hopefully helps self-correct some of that behavior. But what it also does is it lets somebody who's doing it from more of a gossipy, antagonistic sort of way, it calls them out. It lets them know that you are watching and that they can't just get away with that without having that face-to-face conversation with you. And that's so important when we start dealing with the more negative and malicious instances of gossip and some of our employee behavior, is that you let those people that aren't performing or aren't doing what you want know that there's going to be a conversation. Maybe not consequences, but that's not just going to go by the wayside. And so that's my big advice on that, Saeed, is to actually just have that conversation. Bring specifics. That's the one thing. You have to bring specifics and then talk about how that affects other people. Olivia asked the question, and Sasha, Kimberly, good to see you again. Olivia asked the question, how do you train someone to pay attention to detail? I have a wonderful employee who just doesn't pay attention. Olivia, that's a fantastic question. It's good that you're starting off from a place where they are a wonderful employee and they are a good employee. And what I would do is I would coach them in a couple of key traits. As far as attention to detail. And you can look up a bunch of these. You can look at Google, how do I get attention to detail, that sort of thing, which will give you some more ideas. But what you want to do is you want to coach them on it. So it can be something as simple to start out with as, before you hit send on an email, I want you to reread it for grammatical errors, make sure you got your point across, that sort of thing. Before you hand in a report you need to look at. That's a classic one. That was one I suffered with a lot, was I would hand in a report, and it was a huge report, had hundreds of data points on it, but I'd get a couple of the key ones wrong. And when you do that, as you know, you kind of undermine the rest of the data that's on there. So tell them that, that simple thing, before you hand something in, review it, read it. Everybody will make mistakes. Before I post something online in an article, there's always a mistake I would make. As far as my last book, huge amounts of grammatical errors. That's the most humbling experience ever, is writing a book and then having people, read it and find all of the errors in it. But that you might have them set out a checklist before they do a particular task. You need to do this, this, this. Just spend 20 seconds and write down the steps that you need to take for that. But look at that and coach that. Give them tips on it, and then follow up and with that accountability on it. So, and you find that there's a problem with it, ask them, did you reread this? And that reinforces it. So find the tips, do the coaching, and then hold them accountable for it when they make those inevitable errors. And hopefully you can start ingraining that in their behavior, but really highlight the importance of it as well. They might not think that a grammatical error or one error on a report with 100 data points is that big of a deal. But you need to explain to them the big deal that it is, for certainly senior management who takes those things very seriously and doesn't roll with the punches. It doesn't know them as well as you do and what they do. So That's one of the keys on that. Christina, that kind of gets to it as well. How do you to tell someone to write professional emails? And that's come up with a few simple things that they can focus on, and then really follow up and hold them accountable for it. Some professional emails. Again, you can Google it and find 10 factors to a professional email. Not doing emails in all caps is one that pops up to my mind right away. But you can come up with those 10 points and have them focus on those and coach them on those. When they're good with those 10, then you can follow up with another 10. But it takes effort on your part. These things where you're talking about coaching people and trying to get them skills, there is no shortcut. There's a way to go, there's a plan to go, but there's no shortcut. You still have to put in the work. And that's one of the things that I really drive forward with this, is it's important to come up with a plan, but don't think that it's a shortcut to anything. Mike, good to see you from Wisconsin. Go Green Bay. And Crystal, Tarek, good to see you again, Tarek. Thomas asked the question, how can I be more productive and efficient? And Thomas, that comes down to two things that I mentioned in regards to time management and most everything else that goes on in the workforce. And that is, you want to focus and you want to prioritize. A lot of times we don't have a focus, whether it's multitasking or whether it is just bouncing between things and not finishing a particular task. I mean, I might ask you, how many things have you started and not completed that are on your plate right now? For most leaders, it's 10, 15, 20 different things that they've started and haven't completed. Well, instead of starting another 5 things, why don't you go ahead and finish 5 things that you've already started? And that gets things off of your plate. So you want to focus as much as possible. You also want to prioritize. You are never ever going to get everything done that's on your plate. It doesn't happen. In modern leadership today, we have all kinds of things that we could be working on but don't have time to. So you need to prioritize. Your goal is not to get everything done. Your goal is to get the important things done. So focus on prioritizing. So work on the most important things and focus on them. One big tip that I give for everybody is everybody has experienced that. They might be experiencing it today, where you drove into work or rode the subway into work today, and you had something that you wanted to accomplish, and you are going to go ahead and you're going to take the subway home or drive home and go, oh my gosh, I didn't accomplish anything that I set out to do today. Everybody has experienced that. And what I recommend is to start the day, the first 10 minutes, the first 15 minutes, the first 30 minutes is really ideal. And don't open up your email. Don't answer the phone. Work on that one thing that you were thinking about when you were coming into work today that you needed to get off of your plate. Focus on yourself and that highest priority item that you've set in the first 30 minutes of your day. If you get that momentum going at the beginning of your day, you'll be shocked at how much you can accomplish over the course of your day. And before you say, hey, I can't do that, I can't step out for half an hour, what happens when you're away at a meeting for an hour? What happens when you're away at lunch? The department runs itself. All right, people can wait half an hour or an hour. And if it's that big of an emergency, well then okay, for this particular day you can't step into that. But take charge of some of your time. So focus on one particular item at a time, focus on getting things across the finish line, and focus on the most important things. Prioritize as much as possible. That's huge to do things. And Tarek brings up a good point on this in regards to delegation. And that's the other thing to be more productive and efficient is delegation. You can't do everything. That's one of the biggest struggles of leadership, is that we were promoted into leadership because of our own ability to personally get things done. However, when we're leadership, we have to work through people, and we don't personally do things. We help others do things for the organization. And so you can focus on a little bit more delegation, and you'll find that some of those projects that were on your plate, if you move them to somebody else's plate, get done relatively easy, and you can work on more important items that are on there. Next question is from Justin. I've been promoted to a leader recently from group of workers and friends. How do I keep correct distance from them as I still work with them every day? Justin, it's again, a common issue that people have to deal with. Sorry, keep myself hydrated here. It's a common when people get initially promoted is that they were friends with people. And you just have to draw the line between friendship and leadership. And I'll just put it right down. You're going to have to make the choice. Are you going to be their friend or are you going to be their boss? Now, you can be both, but you have to be able to flip the switch, and they have to be able to flip the switch. So make it clear what the expectations are. Make it clear what you're asking them to do, so when they fall short, they know they fell short, and they expect you to hold them accountable. And it's something that a lot of people struggle with, is being able to flip that switch from being a boss or being a friend. I like being friends with people. I like, to be invited to birthday parties or, football games or what have you. But I'm always the last person to arrive and the first person to leave at those things as well, because that's just a responsibility of leadership. And so you just have to be absolutely crystal clear on what it is that you can, that you're willing to do for them, and when you need to flip that switch and be the boss. I have disciplined people in an afternoon, and then at evening been, having, drinks with them at a particular party and getting along just amiably and fine, because we both knew that there was a separation between what happened at work and what happened in the personal life. But really, it does come down to, you're going to have to be willing to shut down one or the other and explain that to them. I have a responsibility. This is work. All right. Yes, we're friends, but at work, I need to do this, and I can't be cutting you any slack just because we're friends. That's not fair to anybody else. And everybody understands this, as much as they might want you to be able to do more. Tarek asked the question in regards to, after the duties and delegation, how can I control a person not under my management? And what if it's an individual that's not under your particular leadership, that can be a sensitive area. And what I do is I make sure that I CC, if I'm emailing or communicating with them, I CC their particular boss on something. So there's a lot of times in organizations where to get something accomplished, you have to have somebody on somebody else's team. And it's just a matter of bringing that other leader into the loop on things. Hey, I'm working with Jerry on your team in regards to this. I'm just going to CC you on our stuff so that you're aware of what he's doing and how the communication is going. If it's not email-based, which is fine, I love it when it's not email-based, just loop the manager. Hey, I'm working with Jerry on this. I asked him to do this. Let me know if there's a problem with it from a priority standpoint. Because what happens is, and I'm sure you faced this already, is you ask that person to do something, and then their boss asks them to do something, and they never handle your stuff because it's their boss. They think that's a better priority. And so you just need to keep those lines of communication open. That's really key. And Pippo asked the question, what's your motivation at work? And that's one of the fundamental questions I have in my leadership playbook in my email coaching that I do. And if you haven't gone to that, go to CameronMorrissey.com. There's a pop-up there to go ahead and sign up for the first few weeks free, and you'll see it. And the first one is actually getting an idea of what the motivation of your team is. Motivation ranges all over the map. Some people are motivated by camaraderie and teamwork. Some people are motivated by an intrinsic need to do a great job. Others want to provide a great service. Others are motivated by money. Money is actually 5th or 6th usually down any list of motivations in the workplace. So people are motivated by a ton of different things. For me, I was always motivated by contribution. I wanted to be working on important things. I wanted to be doing important things for the organization. And so as I stepped out into, my writing career and my coaching career, that follows along very well, because I'm contributing, I'm doing important work, I'm helping other people do great work. So it's always been contribution. But ask yourself and get clear by your own self, what is it that motivates me? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And if you get clear on that, you can start aligning some of the duties to what to those motivations, and you'll find you'll be much happier as a worker in general. So Hazem asked a question. I granted one of my team early leave favor in his birthday as he requested, and I was quite sure next birthdays I will get the same request from different people, and I understand it's fair. In fact, I get what I expected. Sorry, just to skim through this thing. Birthday, go home early more. She wanted to take in favor right before we. So Hazem, what happened there, and I think you saw it ahead of time, is when you give And it's a general thing. When you give some sort of nicety, some sort of empowerment, when you do something for motivation or for culture, what you need to know is that once you do it once, it becomes now not a want from people, it becomes a need, it becomes an expectation. So Hazem, in cases where you granted this person off, for a particular day, you can very quickly say, hey, that's available to you if business demands and if there's a reason for it. But otherwise, you don't get to go home on your birthday. Or you make it something that's cultural and you make it a benefit. I've been in workplaces before where, the boss is shocked that you came in on your birthday and kicks you out at noon or 1 o'clock. And that's great. That becomes a benefit. That's a nice thing to do. And I encourage that sort of thing in the workplace because people appreciate that and it sets the right tone for things. But you need to get crystal clear right away after you do that. You can give an early out to somebody on their birthday, but it has to fit within the business needs. And the business can't suffer, and you just need to be completely transparent on it. No, I couldn't here, I can here, that sort of thing. If you're in the business of giving early outs, maybe they can't get it on their birthday, but maybe you give it to them on another day. And that's the way that you get you're fair. But that's one of those things. As soon as you give something, as soon as you do something nice for somebody, then you have to be prepared to either do it all the time or be very clear that was a one-time in between. That's really the key for there. Rowan asked the question, does coming in late to work and leaving early create a sense of non-palpability with my staff and affect their views towards me as a boss who does his work for the team and is not involved? When it's just simply put in, do I need to stay back after work when the team is still there? And Rowan, what you want to do is you want to manage, you're looking to manage expectations. And one of the easiest ways and the laziest ways to do that is to be the first one in and be the last one out. And yeah, you're sitting there surfing Facebook at 7 o'clock in the morning waiting for your people to come in, or you're surfing Facebook at 6 o'clock at night waiting for your people to leave. That's a lazy way of leadership. No, you don't have to do that. What you have to do is you have to be there for your team at all times. And so if they have an issue, if they need you, if they need your support, then you need to be available. And so that may be 7 a.m. when you are heading into work, they can call you on the phone, or all the way through till 6 p.m. when you're driving home at the end of the day. If they know that you're available, if they know that you're a resource to them, they won't have a problem necessarily with the hours that you have. But you need to focus on that and look at everything. So look at their development, the WIFM, what's in it for me, answering what that is for every person. We talked about motivation just a second ago. What is it that motivates that particular person to intrinsically do a good job, to provide a service, the teamwork aspect of things? What is it? Get clear on that and make sure you're addressing that with your staff. But if you're a great leader, you're not going to be there all the time for your staff regardless. Like I say, lunches, meetings, everything else. You're not expected to be there 100% of the time, but you have to be doing your job. And so a lot of people skip out on doing their job and show up and are there 12 hours a day, and that they prove that they think proves that they are working hard and being a good leader, when it's the results that matter. So focus in on the results, focus on being a resource for your team, providing them what they need to be the best at their job, and then they won't worry so much about what your hours are on a particular basis. A lot of leaders run crazy hours working on weekends, that sort of thing, and so I think that's something that you can do to kind of get out of that trap, Rowan. All right. So I know I missed a few of the questions that popped in today. I will be jumping back into the comment section and answering those questions for everybody. I really appreciate everybody chiming in today. That was absolutely fantastic, a great session, and I just love interacting with you. So if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them into the comment section, and I'll try to get to those over the course of this afternoon, tomorrow, what have you. And my next session is next Monday, starting out the week, so check me out on the event section of my Facebook page. I will see everybody then. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.